Blessed day, everyone. My name is Elnalyn Delas Peñas, and I will be discussing to you the Module 9, the American Colonial Period. And I am assigned to discuss so far the objective number 3. So, objective number 3, what were the various stages of the American occupation in Moreland and how distinct were the American policies in each of the stage? So, bear with my PPT, it's because na-disarrange siya after I downloaded this file, this presentation. So, kindly bear with this presentation po. Okay, let's proceed. The various stages of the American occupation in Moreland we have 3. So first, military occupation from 1899 to 1903. The Moro province from 1903 to 1913, and the third one is the Department of Mindanao and Sulu from 1914 to 1920. So the Filipino-American War was triggered when it happened to San Juan Bridge when a Filipino soldier is being shot dead by a American soldier. It is Private Willie Grayson, and triggered ang war between Filipino and American. And from 19 military occupation and the non-interference policy. So in 19 wait for a while. So in 1999, the Americans would preoccupy themselves with the pacification and colonization of Luzon and Visayas, while war is still being waged against the Christian Filipino revolutionists, and the Americans made sure they were able to neutralize the Muslim by not provoking and encouraging them to join the forces of Emilio Aguinaldo. The reason why the Brigadier General John C. Bates was sent in February 1999 to meet the leaders of Sulu, headed by Sultan Jamalul Kiram. So, when the American preoccupy the Luzon and Visayas, there are war against Christian Filipino revolutionists to the American, they are making sure that they are not provoking the Muslims, so that dili maapil ang Muslims. That's why ang gibuhat ni Brigadier General John C. Bates is in February 1999 is nakigmeet na siya sa leader of Sulu, which is si Sultan Jamalul Kiram. So, the objective was to win the friendship of the Moros in Sulu by convincing the Datus, headman, imams to recognize and accept the presence of the American forces in Moreland. For a month, General Bates explored every diplomatic means just to persuade the Sultan of Sulu, his Datus, to affix their signatures. The Bates Agreements, as it was popularly known in the Philippines history, became the optimum American policy in Moreland in the first 5 years. So, this is why General Bates is nakig-meet siya on February 1899 is to make sure and to win friendship by the Moro and convincing all the Datos nga makig-accept na makipag-friendship sa ilaha. And of course nagbuhat silang agreement, and this agreement in the Moreland nahimo siyang miabot og 5 years. So this policy would be known as the non-interference policy. So the term non-interference meant that the Americans would not meddle in the right of the natives to regulate their own affairs, religious beliefs, and worship and economic activities. It also entailed the non-obligation of Moros outside the larger port towns to pay taxes or duties. But as soon as the war in the as soon as the war in the north subsided, the Americans would abandon the non-interference policy. Indeed, in 1903, the American policy would change from non-interference to direct rule. So as what I have said earlier, that the American make a agreement with the Datus, the other headman of the Moro, and they are making a policy known as the non-interference policy. And this non-interference policy is a policy that the Americans would not, or dili jud sila mag-apil-apil sa tanang mga regulations, sa tanang panghitabo in the Moros, and there will never be obliged and anything, no taxes or duties tungod kay wala jud interference, so lagi mga paghilabot ang mahitabo. But indeed in 1903, ang kaning agreement is nahimong change the non-interference to direct rule. So the Moro province and the direct rule. So the direct rule. As early as 1901, Emilio Aguinaldo was captured. And in the following year, in 1902, almost of the generals were either killed, arrested, or had surrendered. This is why 1903, Americans were already confident to face the Moro and place them into under direct rule. So this is why happened that the agreement of Bates and the other Moros is na changed into direct rule. It's because the Americans is napildi nila si Emilio Aguinaldo, napildi lang ubang mga general, and other than that they arrested and na surrendered ang uban. So this is why it happens that the Americans are very confident to place an under direct rule to the Moro. No, they are being confident. So from 1903 to 1913, placing all Moro Muslim districts under direct American military control. So for most of its existence, administration of the Moro province considered military power as most essential in dealing with the Moros, who would be prepared and introduced to civil procedures and institutions under the new government. The Moro province, therefore, was a government characterized by amalgamation of military presence and power and civil procedures and institution. So this is what happened. No, they are nahimo siyang under into the American military control. So in 1903 and to 1913, so di ba, all the Moro or Muslim districts is under the military control. So here is the administrative structure of the Moro province. So we have insular government, governor to general, Philippine Commission, Moro province, governor or legislative commission, districts, government, district governors and district boards, and all of this Davao, Cotabato, Lanao, Insula, and Zamboanga are under in the military control of the American. No, it is said that Moro and Muslims placing the Moro province, this is the Moro province, is placing all Muslims under the direct military control. So it was actually during the years of Moro province that Americans began to implement policies that directly interfered moral lifestyle and affairs. So this policy included, among others, so diba I told you lately that the American is kanang gi-change nila into direct rule. So ang ilaman taning agreement is not to interfere. So this happens that the American is began implementing policies that interfere the moral lifestyles and affairs. So there are three policies that they are being implemented. First, the taxation, no imposition of taxes on the Moro population. Second is anti-slavery law, banning of slavery among the Moros. And three, disarmament policy, making carrying of traditional bladed weapons illegal. And so because of this, no, indeed, these policies generated violent reactions among the Moros. Ano, there is a great violent reactions among the Moros, and so many of the battles and massacres in Mindanao and Sulu occur during this year of the Moro province. Battles and massacre happens because of this implementation of policies of the American, because there are Muslims, there are Moros is disagree gyud, no, because interfere man sila. So yes, there are battles and massacres in Mindanao and Sulu occur during the year of Moro province. And ang ginawa din ng mga American is they deal with it. They are not hesitate, of course, did not hesitate to deal with the Moro violently, so that the 1913, the disarmament of subjugation of the Muslims of Mindanao Sulu had very become evident. No? American superiority in military power had not only silenced the Moro defiance and resistance, but also forcibly brought together the peoples of Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao into highly centralized and unitary Philippine colony. But of course, ang mga Moros at ang Muslim is hindi talaga sila nagpapatinag, hindi talaga sila sumusuko. And of course, the military is they doing also their best, and the only way to deal with it is by doing it by force, brute force. And this is why during this period na-term nga gigamit nga Moro problem. So, Moro problem. What is Moro problem? By Moro problem is meant that method or form of administration by which the Moro and other non-Christian who are living among them can be governed to their best interests and welfare in the most peaceful way possible, and can at the same time be provided with appropriate measures for their gradual advancement in culture and civilization, so that in the course of reasonable time they can be admitted into the general government of the Philippine Island as qualified members of the Republican National Organization. Now, it is the Moro problem is meant the method of the administration by which Moro and non-Christian who are living among them can be governed by their best interest and welfare. So there's nothing wrong with that. They are just one thing to be governed by their own and their best interest. So next is the Department of Mindanao and Sulu and Philippinization. So it must be mentioned that the United States had always wanted to project a good image. Hence, when she decided to acquire the Philippines as a colony, she made sure she had the best moral justification. For this reason, she would announce to the world the Benevolent Assimilation Proclamation, the document made by President William McKinley, which states that the Philippines was not for the United States to exploit but to develop, to civilize, to educate, and to train in the science of self-government. This proclamation was simply another way of saying that America was going to colonize the Filipino, not for the sake of Americans but for the sake of Filipinos. Hence, McKinley wrote. So this is what the letter of McKinley. To give Philippines back to Spain is not honorable. To leave them to other countries is not acceptable. To allow them to be free is unthinkable. They would tear each other. I decided to keep the Philippines for us to civilize. So this is what the letter of President William McKinley, no? it is mentioned that the United States is always wanted to project a good image of the Philippines. Indeed, they wanted to exploit, but to develop, to civilize, to educate, and to train in the science of self-government. So here are the administrative structure of the department. But before that, the Benevolent Assimilation Proclamation would reveal that the Americans were supposedly looking forward to the date in the future where Filipinos would exercise self-government and eventually become independent. All this started to come true when the Democrats won in 1913. As a matter of policy, the Democrats desired to accelerate the move towards self-government independence for the Philippines. Gradually, the Democrats would transfer the control in the insular government and American to Filipino hands. This policy was known as Philippinization. So, where this is what we call the Philippinization. The policy was known as the Philippinization when the Democrats desired to accelerate the move towards self-government into independence for the Philippines. So here are the administrative structure of the department. So insular government, Department of Mindanao and Sulu, province of governments, we have Agusan, Bukidnon, Davao, Cotabato, Lanao, Sulu, and Zamboanga. There are many districts here. 53 districts, 18 districts, 8 districts, 23 districts, 38 districts, 24 districts, and so on and so forth. So next is we have policy of attraction. In fairness, the Americans, however, they would also exert effort to countervail the effects of colonialism. To mitigate the resentments of the Moros, for instance, the colonial government would come up with the programs and projects that would attract the former. Free education and institutionalized and public schools were established everywhere in the Moro districts. Attendance will be compulsory so that Moro family will acquire to send at least one child to school. The colonial government also created a pensionado program which sent non-Christian natives to Manila and American for higher learning of educational tours. Peter Going added the following comments in the policy attraction. So of course, the American, however, made a policy attraction so that to mitigate the resentments of the Moros. So they implemented no aron dili na kayo mamitigate ang kasuko ang resentment sa Moros for the effect of the colonialism. They come up with the programs and projects that attract the Moros. So there are free education given to them for public schools, and they made sure that all the Moros kanang compulsory jud at least one of the family, at least each family makasend sila at least one student for their education. And also there are another policy attraction they are being implemented. The hospital and field fisheries was also provided. In such medical care came with the reach of nearly the inhabitants. Public works were greatly expanded. No, kanang new roads and trails ended isolation, and household inhabitants brought into contact in the commercial and government centers. The Muslims were given greater participation in the local and provincial government. Later, some were even appointed to the Philippine legislature. Muslim leaders were periodically taken to Manila as guests to government so that on their return they will be apostles of peace and be even more cooperative with the government officials. Now, these are the other programs, the other projects that the Americans are being implemented also is the hospitals and fields and even the public works. They are greatly expanded for it for so that the Muslims can also maka-appeal, and even new roads, trails, and other and isolation, and thousands of inhabitants brought into contact for commercial government centers, and they made sure that the Muslims will have a greater participation for this local and provincial government. And later on, there are Muslims leaders that are being raised. Muslim leaders are being appointed and selected as a legislative Philippine legislature. The agricultural activities of the Muslims were given every encouragement. Now, in Cotabato province, Muslim families together and the Christian families successfully participated in a few years in agricultural colonies established by the government and experienced a land development and intergroup living. Now, even the agricultural activities of the Muslims are being encouraged. Now, being enhanced and developed by the Americans, and all families together with the Christian families successfully participated in a few years in agricultural colonies. So those are what happens to the module, to the objective number 3, the various stages of the American occupation in Moreland and how distinct were the American policies in each of the stage. Now there are massacres and battles, but at the end of the day, the response is that the resentments of the Moros is na mitigate. So that's all, and thank you.